It was 2 a.m. when I stepped into my apartment after an exhausting shift at work. The city always felt quieter at this hour, but tonight the silence was different. Too heavy, too unnatural. It pressed against me, thick and suffocating, as if something was lurking in the stillness. My instincts sharpened, an unexplainable tension curling in my gut the moment I crossed the threshold. Something was wrong. Lissa, my girlfriend of 3 years, was usually asleep by now, either curled up on the couch with a blanket draped over her or nestled in bed, her soft breathing a familiar comfort. But tonight, the apartment felt eerily lifeless. No hum of the television, no rustling of blankets, just a void of sound that set my nerves on edge. I let my keys drop onto the table with a faint clink, breaking the silence as I called out, "Liz!" No response. A flicker of unease crawled up my spine as my gaze drifted toward the bedroom. The door was ajar, just slightly, enough for a thin sliver of darkness to spill into the hallway. As I stepped closer, something caught my eye, the faint glow of a phone screen casting pale blue light from the nightstand. The air in the room felt different, charged with something unspoken. My breath hitched as I reached the phone, my fingers tingling with the weight of unspoken fears. And then I saw it. "Can't wait to see you again tonight, babe. I'll be there soon." The words burned into my mind, their meaning sinking like a cold blade into my chest. My stomach twisted painfully. I had been suspicious for weeks now, but I kept shoving those thoughts aside, convincing myself I was just overthinking. But this was undeniable. I turned toward the bed, my pulse hammering in my ears. Lissa was sitting up, her face illuminated by the dim glow of her phone. She blinked at me, confusion flickering in her sleepy eyes. "What's up?" she asked, her voice groggy, unaware of the storm brewing inside me. For a moment, I just stood there, frozen in the doorway. My mind raced, struggling to catch up with what my eyes had just read. I wanted to speak, to confront her, but my throat felt tight, my words caught somewhere between anger and disbelief. Instead, I glanced at her phone again, as if making sure I hadn't imagined it. "What's this?" My voice came out sharper than I intended. She followed my gaze, and for a split second, something unreadable flashed across her face. Shock, guilt, something else. But then, just as quickly, she masked it, casually flipping her phone screen down onto the nightstand. "You're overreacting," she said, waving a dismissive hand. "It's nothing, just a dumb message from a friend." A friend. The anger inside me ignited, molten and uncontrollable. A friend. My voice was low, but there was no missing the fury beneath it. Her posture shifted, eyes narrowing as her tone grew defensive. "Why are you always like this? You're being dramatic." Dramatic. The word hit me like a slap. I stared at her, my breath coming in slow, deliberate inhales. The anger inside me hardened, transforming into something colder, something clearer. She wasn't even trying to deny it. Not really. She thought she could make me question myself, twist the narrative, gaslight me into believing I was a problem. I took a step forward, leaning against the doorframe. "If it's nothing," I said, my voice eerily calm, "then why are you so defensive? Why can't you just tell me who this friend is?" She rolled her eyes, turning her back to me as she muttered under her breath, "You're impossible." And that was when it hit me. The weight of it all settled onto my shoulders like a crushing force. She wasn't going to explain, wasn't going to apologize. She thought she could brush it off, let it pass, like it meant nothing. Like I meant nothing. My pulse pounded in my temples as I took another step into the room. "I don't know what's going on, Lissa," I said quietly, "but I'm not going to let you make a fool out of me." She scoffed, crossing her arms. "I don't owe you an explanation." Something inside me snapped. Before she could react, I grabbed her phone from the nightstand, my hands moving on instinct. She gasped, lunging forward to snatch it back, but I was faster. My fingers flew across the screen, unlocking it with a passcode I had memorized ages ago. "Lissa, stop!" she hissed, her hands clawing at mine, but I yanked away, scrolling through the messages. And there it was. Not just one message. Flirty texts. Photos. Dates. A history that stretched back months. My breath caught in my throat, my hands shaking as I stared at the evidence. I looked up at her, my vision blurring at the edges. But what unsettled me the most wasn't just a betrayal. It was the look on her face. Not regret, not guilt, just irritation, as if I was the one inconveniencing her. Lissa. My voice cracked as I held up the phone. Explain this. She hesitated, her lips parting, but no words came out at first. And then weakly she muttered, I didn't mean for it to happen. It just did. Just did. My grip on the phone tightened. You weren't giving me what I needed, she continued, her voice trembling. But there was no real sorrow in it. Just excuses. Justifications. I swallowed hard, my throat raw, my mind a storm of emotions I couldn't contain. You think you can just do whatever you want? You thought I wouldn't notice. I'm sorry, she whispered. I didn't mean for it to happen like this. But what? I cut her off. You thought I wouldn't care? You thought I wouldn't find out? She didn't answer. For a long moment, I just stood there, letting the silence stretch, letting her feel the weight of everything she had done. And then, slowly, I placed her phone down on the bed. My voice was quiet when I spoke next, but there was no mistaking the finality in it. You're going to regret this. Something flickered in her expression. Panic, maybe, but she said nothing. She didn't need to. I had already made up my mind. I turned and walked out of the room, my heart heavy, but my decision resolute. I wouldn't beg. I wouldn't fight for someone who had so little regard for me. But I also wouldn't let her walk away from this unscathed. The following weeks were filled with silence. Lissa tried to reach out, tried to explain, but I kept my distance. The power had shifted, and she knew it. I let her sit in the mess she created, let her feel the emptiness of what she had destroyed. And when the time was right, when I knew I had taken back every ounce of dignity she had tried to strip from me, I walked away. She thought she could dismiss me, thought she could laugh it off. But in the end, I had the last word, and that word was silence.